Hi, welcome to Walpole Five-0. I'm Chief John Carmichael. Today is January 31st, 2017. We got January out of the way, so moving into February, and winter's almost done, so we're looking forward to that. A few things to talk about before we get into the log entries this week. It was a quiet week last week, so not a whole lot to talk about, but a few issues that have been going on. And what I've been trying to do is, as people have seen the program, they ask questions, and so what I'm trying to do is address some of the questions that citizens have on this forum so that you can kind of keep the community aware of what's going on. So some of the things that are coming up, first of all, tomorrow is the senior luncheon, February 1st, and that is going to be at Finnegan's Wake at 11:30. The Walpole Police Union sponsors this, Local 115. Tommy and Kristen over at Finnegan's Wake do an amazing job of feeding our citizens, all of our senior citizens this day. So far, we have about 140 people that are signed up for this, and we look forward to this event every year. We've been doing it for a long time. The police officers all show up and serve our seniors and give them a nice meal, and it's a good time. So if you would like to still sign up, there's still some space available, and you just contact the Council on Aging to sign up for this, and we'll get you in there. So that's tomorrow at Finnegan's Wake at 11:30. One of the things that has come up recently is edibles again, and a lot of parents, particularly it seems to be in the middle school, are concerned with these edibles that are out there, because you may have seen in Framingham, even Walpole, up in New Hampshire, there's been some focus on these edibles and getting into the hands of our children with the marijuana THC edibles. And, you know, I just want to mention again that these, you know, when we legalized marijuana, we didn't just legalize the plant material form, the smoked marijuana joint. We also legalized the edibles, which are beverages, baked goods, candies, as well as processed oils, the concentrates, shatter, dabs, butter, butane, honey oil. These are the high concentrated THC forms that are now available, and we're seeing that trend start to move more away from smoked forms and into these edible forms. And I've done presentations on this. Walpole Community Television actually did a presentation that we did up at the high school, and I believe that's online. You can look at that. It does discuss what the dangers of the edibles are and kind of gives you a little bit of outlook as to what these things are, what they look like, and that type of thing. So you can go on there, and I encourage parents to take a look at it, because our youth will be exposed to these things, unfortunately, an unintended consequence. You know, we can say that it's only for people 21 and over, but just like alcohol, it's going to get into their hands. So something that is important, and I do plan on doing some community presentations on this as well in the future. So as always, if there's any questions or concerns, please let me know. The District Attorney's Office, I was able to be a part of the Community Marijuana Strategies hosted by D.A. Morrissey over at the Bank of Canton this past week. That was a good time. I'm sorry, it was actually Friday. But a lot of what this did was it looked at what the impact of Question 4, and we know that Question 4 is what created the new marijuana law, the 94G law, and one of the big issues that comes up, and I know that Walpole is going to be facing this, is Massachusetts is an opt-out program through our law, and which is different from the way Colorado did it. Colorado was opt-in. And what I mean by that is if a town is to have retail marijuana stores, you have to opt out of that program if you don't want it, or else it automatically can move in. In Colorado, they have an opt-in, so they passed the marijuana law, legalized recreational, and then the towns and the cities have to opt into that program in order to take advantage of it, or to, take advantage of it, but to have these stores in your community. So the only way to prevent these retail stores from going in is by a bylaw that's done by a majority vote. And this is where we run into the problem, because the term vote typically means a special election. It means an election vote, a vote of the citizens to come out with a ballot question, and they answer that question, which would be, do you want to opt out of having retail recreational marijuana in your town? The confusing part is that the term bylaw is used, and when you hear bylaw, that means that town meeting should be involved and that town meeting should vote. So There's a little problem with how the language is, and that needs to be interpreted, and we don't know when that's going to happen, but at some point the legislature will interpret these and what that means, and then we'll see the amendments, which probably up to 25% of this law could be amended through the legislature. So one of the issues is moratoriums, and should we wait and put this off for a while? And so being involved in the town, I do have opinions on this. I mean, I think that we don't need a moratorium, basically, because by the time this Cannabis Control Commission is formulated and they have the regulations, which have to be done by the 15th of March of next year, they can't accept applications until April, and then they probably won't get going until June. Now, those first establishments are very likely just going to be marijuana establishments, medical marijuana establishments. So how do we deal with this? I think the way to deal with it, because of this issue with the language, is to not put it off, but to deal with it right now, and put a warrant article on for the town meeting and let town meeting vote on this and whether or not Walpole wants to have recreational marijuana in our town, and have an election vote. So put the same question to the voters on the ballot. And then that way, if it is interpreted one way or the other, Walpole has already done it, and we have it out of the way, and we've already dealt with it. And then we can deal with the next issue that comes up. So that's kind of just my take on it, and I know this will be an issue that will come up. It's been debated a lot in Walpole, I get that. And you know, my whole thing isn't to get too involved in this, but I'm here if I think that, you know, I know enough about this law. I think that I could help, and I could help answer questions if need be. Today was a great day this morning. We went to Blessed Sacrament. Principal Jim Spillman and Father Chip invited us to come down, police officers as well as firefighters, because the kids down at the school were you know, in there talking about community service and police officers and firefighters, first responders, and they made a whole bunch of these care packages up for us, and it was very nice. I mean, it was a great turnout. The school did it this morning before the kids went to classes, and we got down there to meet a lot of the kids, and then the kids presented us with these care packages, and we just want to say thank you very much to Principal Spillman and as well as Father Chip. That was a great time. Also got to bump into Sean and Jack, two of the kids that were down on Shoefelt last week when I was working the Patriots detail, and the kids were out there selling brownies and making hot chocolate and selling water and that kind of thing, and they were doing that to all the Patriots fans as they walked down Shoefelt. So we gave them a positive ticket for that, and it was nice to bump into Sean and Jack again today. So that was good, and so thank you very much to Blessed Sacrament. It was really nice for them to recognize the officers and to give us the goodie bags. So thank you. Criminal justice reform, this also came up. And I responded to the Walpole Times editorial this week, and there was an editorial in there about criminal justice reform. And you know, typically we don't reply to a lot of that stuff, but when we see things that seem a little bit off, we do. You know, it's important to note that Massachusetts has one of the lowest incarceration states in the whole country. We're probably second or third for the amount of people that we incarcerate here. If you think back, minimum mandatory sentences, truth in sentences, the reason why mandatory minimums were created was because of the disparity in classes of people. And, you know, it got to a point where judges weren't really holding criminal offenders equally accountable for like crimes. And so these, or people were just being repeat offenders, and there was nothing really taking place as far as incarceration. And they came up with mandatory minimum sentences. Now, they protect the public. They primarily focus on violent crime, firearms, drug trafficking, drug distribution, OUI offenses. They also deal with prostitution charges and laws that are designed to protect victims of human trafficking. So these mandatory minimums are for very serious crimes. And most of the people that are incarcerated in Massachusetts, which is a low number for mandatory minimums, it's less than 10% of the people that are incarcerated, they average multiple convictions, so 14, 15 convictions as a minimum. So, these are the only times that they apply. They apply when there's been past convictions. And I'll give you an example. Drug distribution, the minimum mandatories for drug distribution don't kick in until second subsequent offenses and convictions. Drug trafficking takes effect, but what we did as far as reform with that is we reduced the amounts of drugs that people can have, the weight. We reduced the weight, we reduced the school zone. And we did other things too. We decriminalized marijuana. We came up with the Good Samaritan law where we don't arrest people when they call 911 after an overdose. We reduced the time spent for mandatory minimums, and we allow parole in certain situations as well. So there's a lot of things that have already been done. We had CORI reform, which is criminal offender record information, and how that's accessed and who can access it. We've had Melanie's Law, where that was a mandatory minimum that kicked in for OUI, because this was a young girl who was killed as a result of a repeat drunk driver. And so the laws are there to protect people, and the mandatory minimum issue, we already do reform. We've been doing reform, and I know we will continue to, but it's something that we've always done. We've always been doing this. One of the issues I saw in that editorial was the socioeconomic status and pre-trial incarceration and bail. I get that. That's something I think that we need to look at, where people that are less fortunate, they're arrested, they're brought to court, and they can't make bail just because of their financial situation. But somebody that's in a higher financial status is able to bail themselves out and get out of jail. So I think that's something that needs to be looked at. Couple other issues, St. Mary's traffic. Father Chip has expressed some concern with people crossing there, so we have assigned police officers to Washington Street at St. Mary's during masses to help people in the crosswalk. We have had people that have been struck in that crosswalk in the past. One time it was by an individual who was drugged driving, who was under the influence of drugs, and that person was arrested and charged. But we're going to try and assist, and hopefully that will help some of the public safety issues down there in front of St. Mary's. The rape aggression defense class just finished up. Officer Hazeldine, Bethany, Crown, Lagoa, Parlon, Percha County, and Thayer helped out with this, teaching women risk reduction, risk awareness, different techniques that they can learn, and then at the end of the last class they'd go into a fight simulation where they actually go against officers in red man suits, and that was a great program. We just finished that up. Additionally, we're going to be doing a RAD Kids, the kids version of this class, and that's going to be done during February vacation, and that's for ages 5 through 8 and then 9 through 12. So we'd have two separate groups of kids. Officer Hazeldine, Parlon, and Thayer are going to do that. And that's a great little program to teach kids about stranger danger and different techniques and things that kids can look out for, and it's a really good program. The February vacation, you can sign up at the rec center. COBRA, Cops on Bikes for Regional Assistance, that's the COBRA unit. Boston Police Department has been great with Walpole. We have some great connections. A lot of Boston officers live here in Walpole, and we have very good relationships with them. Every once in a while they invite us to their COBRA training, which is bicycle patrol training. Officer Thayer, Tolan, Benna, Moriarty, and Madden have all been extensively trained by Boston PD to mitigate large crowds and to deal with situations while you're deployed out on a bicycle. And this is a great training opportunity. And payback for doing this training with Boston, they ask us once in a while to deploy extra resources for them when they have very serious events, major events such as the Super Bowl this coming week, and so we'll send a couple officers in there to help them out with that. But we do always appreciate Boston and the resources and the assistance that they provide us routinely, so very much appreciated. So getting into the log, on January 24th, a community policing event, we had SRO Hart and Detective Hazeldine went down to Longview Farm. They served lunch, and as a result, this kind of pulled the rest of the officers in from the shift. Some of the others that were assigned to that sector also went down, and they were able to sit down with the group of kids, and many of them who actually played kickball with us a couple weeks ago, and it was a good thing. The kids got a kick out of it, seeing police officers served them lunch, and it was a good time, and I appreciate them doing that. It does wonders when we're trying to work with the kids down there. Middle school investigation, School Resource Officer Hart, he's investigating a phone theft that occurred at Bird Middle School, which is he's working on currently. Trees down on January 24th. This has been an incident, situations where with the high winds and everything kicking in, even without the snow, we're still having some scatter power outages and trees and limbs down, that kind of thing. A well-being check. Officer Doherty conducted a well-being check on somebody, and the purpose why I put this in there is because, you know, when you have a loved one that you're not living with and you haven't heard from them, don't ever hesitate to call us to have us go down and do a well-being check. We get calls from, it can be anywhere in the country. Somebody might be in California and say, you know, hey, I haven't heard from my loved one, might be an aunt or a parent or whatever else in a while. Can you please go down and check on them? And we'll go down there and do that, and we'll make sure that we continue to use the resources that we have until we find the person and make sure that they're okay and we can verify it. But Officer Doherty went on this call for something similar to this, and when he got there, he found that there was somebody inside the home and they were in distress, and entry had to be made, and the victim was found lying inside on the floor and semi-conscious. So the officers were able to get the fire department and the ambulance down there to help us and get this person to the hospital. And, you know, had that call not been made, there could have been obviously a lot worse consequences. So with well-being checks, we're always glad to go check on those things. You know, people think that you might be bothering us or something like that. You're not bothering us. That's our job, and more than happy to go down and check and make sure somebody's okay. Mental health, you know, I brought this up before, and you know, with Walpole Five-0, I'm always going to be very careful not to expose too much or you know, embarrass anybody or put anything out there that really doesn't need to be known. But mental health is a big issue that we deal with, even since, like, it seems Thanksgiving all the way through this time of year. We have a lot of you know, a series of mental health issues that we try and deal with. And as I mentioned before, we use our resources. We have a community crisis intervention team. Officer Kevlich and Officer Hart are part of that intervention team. We collaborate with other people like DMH and our Department of Mental Health, Riverside, crisis intervention people that can help out with these situations. And each incident, we will evaluate it, assess it, and try to avoid arrest. Like, even though there might have been a minor crime committed, you know, if there's an underlying mental health issue, arrest isn't the right answer. And what we need to do is make sure that we're using the resources at our disposal to get the person the help that they need. And, you know, in this case, somebody that was out and on the tracks for the MBTA, and the officers went up there and did a good job corralling the person and making sure that they got over to the hospital under section, as opposed to trespassing or some criminal charge, which doesn't do us much good. Now, Norfolk County does have mental health court, we have drug court, and we have veterans court. So these are very good courts, separate from just the regular district court system, where we can get people that are in those categories specific help and deal with those specific needs. So it works really well for Norfolk County. Pursuit, there was a pursuit from Westwood PD that started out, it ended up out on I-95, came down I-95 into Walpole. State police were involved, Walpole PD was involved, and almost immediately, once encountered by the state police out on 95, this pursuit ended. One individual bailed out of the vehicle on 95, and the other individual was immediately apprehended. K-9 also responded out there, and K-9 did a quick search of the area, and they were able to locate the driver, and they apprehended that driver after a foot pursuit. Officer Manganello was out there assisting state police with this, and they did a great job in making sure this pursuit ended quickly, and that, you know, these individuals were placed on arrest. It ended up being that there were multiple larcenies involved with in excess of thousands of dollars that these individuals were responsible for, and that was the ultimately that was the purpose of the pursuit in the beginning. Even though unbeknownst to the officers that they didn't have all the information, but that's how it kind of started out. On January 26th, hypodermic syringes, I think I've mentioned this before, but sometimes people will call us. If you do come across hypodermic syringes used for intravenous drug use, you can call. A lot of times people will find them on the sidewalk, in the cemetery, just in different locations, a park or something like that, and we'll go and take those and make sure that they get into a shop's container and they're disposed of properly. Also, Robin at the health department, she also takes in needles, and we encourage, if you're an intravenous drug user or you have somebody in your family that is, encourage them to get rid of these needles because they're a public safety hazard, a public health issue, and other people and kids and everybody else can be exposed to that. And you're dealing with that issue, but don't expose other people to it, and try and get these syringes picked up. But this happened up on Route 1 in an area where they had been found multiple times. So please take note of that. Thank you. January 28th, there was a warrant arrest. This was just the result of Officer Bieberman entering and querying a registration plate into his mobile data terminal. Moments later, Officer Bieberman was alerted to the fact that this vehicle had a revoked registration, the car was unregistered, uninsured, and that the owner had multiple default warrants out for them from the court system. So Officer Bieberman effected that motor vehicle stop, and he arrested this person for the warrants and also cited them for driving an unregistered and uninsured motor vehicle. So great job by Officer Bieberman. Noise complaint, responded at 2 Norton Ave. And this is just officers responded. They spoke to the people that were involved, and peace was restored at that scene. An underage drinking incident. 4 youths were located as an officer was just on routine patrol at the MBTA station on West Street. The officer encountered these 4 individuals by the platform up there and noticed that they were consuming alcohol at that location, and they immediately, upon seeing the cruiser, started to walk away. The officer got out, tried to encounter them, and they ran on foot. The officer was able to locate and stop one individual who was a 15-year-old, and he was set up for a hearing as being a minor in possession of alcohol, having alcohol on his person, as well as there at the scene. And the other individuals were able to get away. Now, there's other issues with this case here, too, because you have kids in that type of an area. You got the train coming through. There's a trespassing issue. But I want to just be clear that there's a lot of misunderstanding as to how this process works. And with underage drinking, what we always do is, number one, we always notify the parent. Like, the parents are usually going to be the best deterrent for future use, so the parents can deal with those situations. We notify them. And what we'll usually also do is we'll set it up for a hearing at the juvenile court. And what I want to be clear about is when we set something up for a hearing, the purpose of that hearing is not to be punitive and to bring this kid to court and have them be arraigned and generate a record. What we want to do is get them, especially dealing with a 15-year-old, that's early onset. If you're drinking at 15, 14 years old, that's early onset use. There's other issues that you need to be dealing with. So we try and set it up as a hearing. There's no arraignment, so they're never formally arraigned on the charge. And what we do is we divert it out. We do diversion and send that to the court and probation to try and have some type of an awareness or education mechanism built in there so that they learn something from this experience. And then we'll hold that case over for 6 months. And what that means is that if the juvenile does not get in trouble, they're not back involved with the court again for the next 6 months, that it just automatically goes away and it's vanished. So there's no arraignment, there's no record of this as a criminal record or anything like that, or juvenile delinquency record. It's just chalked up as, this individual was caught with alcohol, we diverted it, got them education and awareness, and after 6 months it goes bye-bye. So that's important to know, because I think a lot of people think that the juvenile system is very punitive, and it's really not. It's mostly administrative. So there was an OUI arrest. This was just one OUI arrest by, oh, I didn't put down what officer. It was on Washington Street after a car crash, but I neglected to put what officer that was on there. January 30th, unwanted person. Officers responded to Walpole Park South. This was for an unwanted person who happened to be a temporary employee who was arguing with the manager, refusing to leave after being told to do so. That individual was told that the police were responding, and as a result, that person left the premises prior to the police arrival. So that worked out well. In another arrest, Officer Manganello arrested an individual who had 4 outstanding warrants. These are all out of Rentham District Court, and there was no bail set due to this warrant being the default. So when somebody is arrested for default warrants, meaning that they didn't show up for court, they failed to show up for court, failed to appear, these warrants were entered into the system, and because that person did not go to court or they failed to appear prior, there is no bail set. So once that person was arrested for these default warrants, they were detained at the police station until they were able to be transported to court the next day. So Officer Manganello located that person just on from our warrant dump. As I've mentioned before, the warrant dump we do every week to see which warrants are active in Walpole and which ones have been cleared. And as I've mentioned before too, they can always vary from 1,000 to 1,500 warrants in the system. So there's always, it's repetitive. It's people don't show up for court, and more warrants go in, and we arrest people, and those warrants go out. So it's kind of a perpetual cycle, if you will. So a noise complaint. Officer Parlon and Perchicante responded to East Walpole for a report of loud music, another noise complaint, and peace was also restored there. And those are always good. I mean, you get the neighbors are getting too loud, and they choose to quiet down for the night, and that's always appreciated. We did do another warrant sweep. As I just mentioned, we get that warrant dump. We set up officers on a warrant sweep to basically go out, and it doesn't necessarily mean Walpole. Sometimes we'll do a warrant sweep that might just be Norfolk County, and we'll send officers out early to go out and try and locate individuals who have failed to appear at court or have straight warrants for certain other crimes, and we'll try to locate them and bring them before the court for those charges. And we did do one this past week. However, none of the individuals that were identified on the warrant suite were located, so not much luck with that one. But anyways, that's it for this week with Walpole 5-0, and I'm Chief John Carmichael, and I thank you very much for joining me. And as I mentioned, if there's ever questions about specific things that the police department does, different programs that we offer, you can always shoot me an email, or you can call me here at the police station, and I'll try and address it right here on Walpole Cable. And once again, I look forward to tomorrow and seeing our seniors at the senior luncheon at Finnegan's Wake, and looking forward to what Tommy and Kristen put on for us tomorrow. So thank you very much, and take care.